Okay, we now welcome on to the show Mikhaila Peterson, the CEO of the Lion Diet. Mikhaila, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's all good. So, Mikhaila, we just spoke to the filmmakers of The Rise of Jordan Peterson. So, have you seen the film, and what were your impressions of it?
I actually haven't seen the whole film. That's going to sound really bad coming out, but I haven't seen the whole film. But I was there for a very long time filming it. So I can tell, like, I know what happened because I was in the film. My
Yes.
impressions from the sections I've seen, I thought that they did a really good job keeping things fair. I would say it's a lot of people were afraid that it was going to be a pro Jordan film, and it's not. It's pretty neutral. So that's all I really have to say about the film.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
neutral. I think it's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because with Jordan Peterson, The Rise of Jordan Peterson, it takes a nuanced film. There's interviews with yourself, there's interviews with Jordan's friends and family, and also some of his enemies. But I suppose, with Jordan, there's just so many things that people will, they've already got their preconceived notion of who he is, and they're just going to go with whatever that is. So I don't know, if you were to make a Jordan Peterson documentary, what type of things would you be highlighting about Jordan?
Mine would probably be more positive than The Rise of Jordan B. Peterson. And what would my film look like? I think I would probably zoom in a bit on how Dad's rise to fame affected the family, which I guess they got a little bit in the film, but it's been a very strange last couple of years. So I'd probably give more of a background on what's changed in our family since Dad skyrocketed to fame randomly.
Well, let's talk about that, Mikhaila. So we'll get onto the Lion Diet in a second, but what was it like seeing your dad become so famous so quickly, both for him and for yourself?
Exciting and scary. It was kind of scary at the beginning. It happened so quickly that I'd walk down the street and Dad would be on the front of a newspaper. And there'd be something horrible on the newspaper cover. And so that was scary, mostly. I lost all faith in mainstream news outlets, which I used to read. There's a newspaper called the Metro here in Canada, which is just, a local newspaper. And I just read the news and kind of believed the news. And then the weirdest part, I guess, with Dad, well, not the weirdest part of Dad getting famous, but one of the weird parts was people were just publishing lies. Like, Jordan Peterson said this. I was like, he didn't say that at all. And I was thinking, oh, what else have I read that just isn't true? So I think our whole family lost faith in mainstream news outlets. That was strange. What else happened? Well, he disappeared. He went on tour for a year, just solidly traveling. So he shot up to fame and then disappeared with my mom. That was the background of what happened. So it's been odd.
It was scary for you seeing your dad's face pop up on so many newspapers and stuff like that. But I just wonder, did you also see a change in Jordan in this time? Was there you say he disappeared for a year. Was there a different person that came back, or is it just the same dad that you always had?
Well, it's a bit complicated. I would say he's pretty much the same, but at the same time, we started we were both fairly ill before he got famous, and so he kind of got famous and we got better at the same time. So he changed when he got better, as well, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But I don't think he changed from the fame. He was still. But he did change from losing a bunch of weight and recovering from some illnesses. So not only did he pop up to fame, but he also looked a lot different because of the change in, how ill he was. So it was two things that were difficult to wrap my head around, and for the rest of my family. But no, I would say he stayed pretty much the same personality wise, a little less volatile. And more stressed out. There were a lot of really stressful situations that popped up with, when you get attacked in the media, it's stressful, and you have to be pretty you have to be a pretty calm person to be able to deal with that amount of hate coming from people, especially if it's aimed at you about things that you haven't said. So I wouldn't say he changed, but he definitely got stressed out.
Yeah. So, look, my dad is nowhere near the Jordan Peterson in terms of fame, but his public profile here in Australia as like a conservative TV host and journalist, it influences people's opinion of me. So how do you deal with people putting you in boxes and going, oh, this is every opinion you have in life because of how I perceive your father? Because I'm struggling.
Yeah. Well, somewhat fortunately, I pretty much agree with most of what he's saying. I'd say he's more conservative than I am. So some of the things he says, well, he's more conservative than I am for sure. But the gist of what he's saying, I've been behind that for a number of years. Like when I first went to university in Montreal, there were a whole bunch of courses I was taking that were overrun with like feminist ideology. Like I was taking classics and reading Homer, and we were having to read Homer through a feminist perspective. And I was really, really annoyed about that because it was like, I didn't take this course to take feminism. That's why I took classics. So I was complaining about that over social media probably since 2012. So at least that part still kind of lined up. But then, yeah, he's a little bit more conservative than me, but fortunately I don't mind being lined up with him or aligned with him. So that hasn't really affected me, I guess. I mean, I did get a couple of questions. It's like, oh, your dad said women shouldn't wear lipstick. Why do you wear lipstick? I was like, that's not what he said. But I don't know. It's been strange. It hasn't bothered me. One of the weird things that has happened, though, I guess, is I'll have people on Facebook that I went to high school with complaining about him on Facebook. So I've had to delete a number of people just because I don't want that showing up on my Facebook. It's been a very surreal experience.
All right, we've all seen Jordan Peterson on telly and on YouTube and things like that. What is he like in person? What's he like around the dinner table? Does he sit there saying, life is suffering and you have to adopt responsibility? Does he talk about the weather? Is the Jordan Peterson we see on TV and YouTube the same as the one around the house? So,
yeah, the Jordan Peterson you see on YouTube and on stage at his shows and everything is the Jordan Peterson at home too.
That's intense.
There really isn't a difference. He might have no. Like sometimes he's funnier in person, but he's funny on stage sometimes too. So that is pretty much what you see is what you get. That's what I grew up with.
Brilliant. Let's talk about your work with the Lion Diet. So what is it and what are the benefits of the carnivore diet?
I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when I was 7. Had my hip and ankle replaced when I was 17, even though I was really heavily medicated for the arthritis. I had extremely severe depression, chronic fatigue. I was sleeping all the time. And then I had a myriad of other like autoimmune-like symptoms, itchy skin, rashes, severe brain fog, amongst other things. So those were the main problems I was suffering from, and they were getting worse and worse and worse. And I was going on more and more medications, and I kept going to doctors and being like, "What about this new symptom?" And nobody really knew what to do with me because I was getting so much sicker and I was so medicated. And when I was 23, I came across some evidence suggesting that gluten in particular could contribute to damage in the gut, and that could cause autoimmune problems. And I came from the perspective of diet has nothing to do with health. I really thought it had nothing to do with health because we had talked to my doctors a number of times about whether or not what I was eating was contributing to my health problems. And their response was straight up no. And I trusted them to know what they were talking about. So it was really shocking for me to come across actual evidence that gluten, particularly for susceptible individuals, can be damaging to your gut. So I cut out gluten, and then and that didn't make much of a difference. And I started out cutting out foods kind of out of desperation to see if my autoimmune problems would lessen with removal of foods. And this was kind of before the whole paleo and keto diets got popular. So I didn't know what I was starting with what I thought people wouldn't be allergic to. So I kept meat. People aren't allergic to meat. And I kept a bunch of root vegetables, and I cut pretty much everything else that I thought might be giving me some sort of allergic reaction. Anyway, fast forward a number of years, I tried to reintroduce, and every time I tried to reintroduce food that I was like craving or that I missed, because I was used to eating out all the time and cooking at home was really annoying, I'd have these really terrible autoimmune flares. And at this point, I had stopped taking my autoimmune medication, which I was injecting biweekly. I stopped that because I wanted to see if this diet was working. And I was having, every time I reintroduced a food, I was having this horrible flare up. So I stuck with this baseline of foods, which was basically meat and fish, some root vegetables, and a couple of fruit. I'd cut out grains, legumes like soy, nuts, most fruit, dairy. And I improved dramatically. Like my arthritis basically went into remission. I got off of my antidepressants. My idiopathic hypersomnia, so the chronic fatigue, went away 3 months into this really limited diet. And that's when I put Dad on the diet. So that was December 2015. And he started losing weight really rapidly, and a whole bunch of his health problems started getting resolved. So that was a really meat heavy diet, but it wasn't pure meat. And then a couple of years later, so 2017, I had a baby, and my autoimmune symptoms came back afterwards, during the pregnancy, actually. And I was on this ridiculously limited diet. At that point, I was just eating meat and greens, and Dad was just eating meat and greens. I was like, why? Like, how am I supposed to survive off of just meat? I'm going to die of some vitamin deficiency. But then, so I switched down to just meat to see what would happen. And within a week, the joint pain I was experiencing, which wasn't as bad as it was when I was doing the standard American diet, but the joint pain that was lingering went away. The itching I was experiencing went away. 6 weeks into only eating meat, the depression I was experiencing went away. And 5 months later, my lingering anxiety went away. And I got Dad to switch over to that too. After, I think it took me like 4 months of harping at him because he was just eating meat and greens. And I was like, just drop the greens and see what happens. And he switched over to it. And it sounds like, well, so I've been doing it for 2 years now. I started December 2017. So it's officially been 2 years. My vitamin deficiencies that I have recovered. My vitamin D is still a little bit low, but it's been low forever. But my zinc, which was low from the time I was 7 on, has recovered. All my health symptoms are gone. So this diet's completely transformed my life. And I've been trying to spread it around, getting a little bit of negative feedback about not being a nutritionist and trying to share this all beef diet. But basically what I tell people is if you have a number of unexplainable health symptoms and you're not getting better and you don't know what to do about it, this is an option for a really extreme elimination diet. And I've seen thousands of people recover from really, really severe, theoretically incurable health problems by switching over to what I call the lion diet. So that's ruminant meat, salt, and water, and that's it. And a lot of people get better on the carnivore diet, which includes other animal products like dairy and eggs, but dairy and eggs seem to give me autoimmune symptoms, so I'm just eating meat. So that's a bit of a background of what's been going on diet-wise for the last couple of years.
Right, cool. So in the movie, it makes a huge deal out of this diet change in terms of Jordan Peterson's rise. Do you take credit for that? Do you think you played a crucial role in this whole thing? Because the way it looks like he's kind of, I guess, a bit doughy, not lacking energy, can't get up in the morning, changes to your diet and takes off. Yeah.
The change in Dad was dramatic. like extremely dramatic. He was napping for a couple of hours every day in the afternoon. And that stopped. He couldn't wake up in the morning well. That stopped. He lost 55 pounds. And his energy was endless. He was also having, like, prior to dietary changes, he was saying that he was reading and he was having a hard time not focusing exactly, but kind of focusing on what he was reading. And I thought, well, maybe you're getting older, maybe you need glasses or something. But it wasn't that. It was brain fog. So that lifted. So he lost a whole bunch of weight. Brain fog went away. A whole bunch of, like, more minor autoimmune symptoms. He had psoriasis. All that cleared up. And then that September, the YouTube video that first went viral. So I don't want to take credit for the YouTube video, but the way he was lecturing prior to dietary changes with the brain fog is not the same as how he was lecturing after dietary changes when the brain fog lifted.
I think you should absolutely take credit for the YouTube video. But where can people go if they want to learn more about the Lion Diet?
Go to MikhailaPeterson.com, or my name is difficult to spell. Go to liondiet.com. I have a mailing list you can sign up for. I'm working on a course to try and help people transition into this diet if they want to try it, which I've also got some flack for because people ask, why do you need a course on a diet that's just beef, salt, and water? Which is a fair question, but if you drop carbs suddenly too, you experience pretty intense carb withdrawal. People don't understand how addictive, like, sugar is. And I probably would have just written off this diet if you had told me about it 5 years ago. But I'm coming out with a course. So sign up for the mailing list. And then I'm on Instagram at Mikhaila Peterson, and on YouTube. There's some information up there too. Mikhaila Peterson.
Okay, brilliant. Mikhaila Peterson, CEO of the Lion Diet. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me on.